And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here at freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio. Now, for our listening pleasure and for the things that are happening, you should go to the homepage. Because for one thing, the homepage has so much information, I could not even expound on it much at all. I will bring up the archives, which are, a godsend and a must-have if you're interested in listening and learning and unprogramming the conditions that we've been under, plus some other fun times that are happening. Lessons to be learned, sights to be heard, and all kinds of adventures. So go to the homepage, get your $5 a month archives, and then check on the DVD for each one of your show's favorite host, because you can also purchase that. And let me see, what else have I got to say right now? Donate, donate, donate. We would like to stay here in the future for you folks. So everybody who's listening, if you can, don't hesitate to go to that donate button, or at the bottom of the home page is an address in case you like the snail mail. Now today my guest is Mohsen Paul. Ooh, let me say, I'm going to let you say your own last name, okay, sir?
It's not that difficult,
Mona. I know, but it's one of those moments.
Hi, Mona. First of all, let me say hi to you, and it's nice to be with you again. My last name is Sarfarazi, and, it's easy to remember it. Think of the fast cars.
I was thinking of a dance.
Dance?
A dance, must go. Yeah, well, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I guess. Okay. No, it's Sarfarazi. It's just the way it's written. It's easily pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know why people sometimes get so afraid of simple names. While you see all these Swedish and German names and all kinds of Welsh and all kinds of names. This is very simple, actually, just the way it is pronounced.
Okay.
It's written Sarfarazi.
Cool.
Okay?
Now, a little bit of a background of your sharing or what you might be sharing today and where it's come from.
Mona, you send me a comment, a message that you thought this particular paper that was published a while back, I think it was January, and the topic was crystalline consciousness and the dawn of ascension.
Cool.
So I thought we might talk about that.
I'm ready.
Very good.
Because you write a lot of papers, and I have already posted your Facebook in the chat, so people who want to have some questions answered or whichever, and you're following the posts on our Facebook walls, please go to the chat room and put your your questions in all caps with my name, which is Herbal Floozy 1, and we'll get going. So go ahead, explain the consciousness with crystals, man. I love it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, basically, this particular topic, I wrote this paper, well, not this particular one, but on the subject about June of 2012, I believe. And there was a period from about April to 12/12/12 that I was extremely attuned to Lord Metatron. And I wrote something in the neighborhood of 200 different papers, which were published on a website, which is multidimensional consciousness .tripod.com.
Cool.
Now we did have our own site, and I had the secretary dealing with this, and so she was in charge of all that. We stopped doing this, I guess. The URL is basically gone, which was multidimensional consciousness dot com.org, multidc.com. Anyway, all this. I have to revive some of those. But anyway, if they go to multidimensional, I believe it's .consciousness.tripod.com, or they can just, check my name on Google, and it will drop them to that eventually if they look around. Anyway, we I wrote a book regarding the ascension of Earth, 12-12-12, and I talked about such things as the cosmic triggers and, the 144 grid system, basically Earth grid system, and the harmonic convergence and all that. So this about a month ago, again, I sat down and rewrote some of those items, which are repetitive, but this time it's much more concise, and it's put in a bullet form, so it has all the facts in there.
Cool.
So the topic.
Did you? I have a question, just because it came
Sure.
into my mind, because you said this was 2012, and for the thoughts that we have and the conditions that were, what got changed that you had to reconsider writing more on it?
The, it's just that I'm republishing, or I'm publishing, actually, not republishing. I'm publishing a number of books that I had planned to do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked together that, my wife passed away last year,
Right.
and I was taken away from some of this. And before that, I had to help her with her clinic. And so I wasn't very active on Facebook for a while, so some of these things didn't get published. 2 books got published, and I'm getting back to that, and I'm trying to get the institute going, the Institute of Spiritual Science Incorporated, which I established it at that time. So it's a part of that. It's very comprehensive, and I'm just going back, reiterating on topics, and new things are coming up, coming in. I'm up basically most of the night, a lot of times. Not most of the night, but I get up at 1 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock, and it's just because I wake up and there's I don't know what you call it. I don't like to call it channeling. It's inspiration. It's you get overwhelmed by information and thoughts and all that.
Yeah, almost like automatic writing when your soul or your oversoul is communicating with you because you're at peace and you're at that quiet time. So it's allowed to catch up with you, because otherwise our brains move so fast and in so many directions that we always don't have the time just to let go, meditate into that moment. So I'm getting what you're saying about waking up in your sleep and having to process things. Totally.
That is completely correct. And although I'm very, very much attuned, I think more than an average person, or well, what is an average person
I know,
nowadays? I don't
right?
know.
I mean,
People are all,
so,
they're all expanding in their consciousness. The frequencies are changing, and people are absolutely just transforming, day by day. So there is no such thing as normal. But the old normal, I mean, on
you're
average,
fine
I'm
on that.
very attuned.
But it's just that our attentions get moved in such different ways. So you are,
Yeah, sure.
not always in the right moment, or you're not always in the same moment that you were processing before. So yeah, hey, you're enjoying it though. You're not taking it personal, so it's not weighing you down because you sound rested.
Yeah, no, that's I'm very, very much at peace with God, and I believe I have a mission on Earth. I'm very, very sure of that. When I go back to my education, why I did this, why did that, it
Right.
all fits in so well, and I think I'm here to communicate some of these higher advanced issues with my fellow man, and I'm a light worker for sure. And that's my mission. That's my job. That's my contract. And I think my wife I spent 35 years, with my wife and three children, and brought them up, and I had to support my wife all the way in everything. She finally became a surgeon. And then after that, helping her through her clinic and all that stuff. So I was very, very busy with a lot of other things, but I consider this as a second phase of my life,
Mm-hmm.
going back and now fulfilling the contract, because it's very clear. I mean, it's the feeling, the sentiment is very clear. The way I live every second of the day and look at this world and everything,
But you're
it's
seeing it and actually expounding it in a most positive way, right?
oh,
Because it's the unconditional love that you're trying to share of the knowledge of the wealth of we're all in the same universe kind of thing.
most definitely, most definitely. I feel it. I do get disappointed with people sometimes. I think there is that some of that selfishness and competition and some of that unfortunately still exists, but it's dying out little by
Right.
little. And but otherwise, I know exactly what I am. I'm 12 selves within one soul, and bunch of souls within an oversoul,
Mm-hmm.
bunch of oversouls within a avatar, and bunch of avatars within a rishi, and bunch of rishis that goes beyond even my imagination.
But that's all of us. That's not just
That's all
you
of us.
claiming that you have these things. It's actually where we all have these things. You're just more aligned to accept the different dimensional communications to bring them into this third world.
That is exactly correct, Mona. And this morning, I think on last night, I had a gentleman uh, asking me, messaging me and say, I have some questions. And the question came to this. And he said, why some people are more gifted? Who are the star seeds? And all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to just repeat the answer I gave to him when I wrote to him. And we're all the same. We are all children of God. We all come from the same divine source.
Mm-hmm.
However, we were detached, not detached. See, I wrote a paper. It's called a mathematical model for consciousness. I
Mm-hmm.
think I would recommend people read it. It's very, very unique in
Cool.
its way because it explains to you, models to you who you are, what your soul is. And I basically modeled this you as a constitution, a source of constitution, call it matter, call it antimatter. In this physicality, it's all matter. Once you move in inner space, in higher dimensions, in parallel dimensions and higher dimensions, it becomes antimatter. But it is constitution. It basically it lies within a spectrum, going from the solid matter all the way to the ethereal antimatter. And so, anyway, consider yourself as a clump of that, and you're connected by a spring to the source, and the source is the prime creator.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all there at the source, and we were giving this free will to go out about the into the multi-universe, cosmos, whatever you want to call it, inner space, and experience things by ourselves. Because no matter how many times you tell your child or students, they have to experience it themselves. And I think you'll probably agree with me that same topic, same subject, same phenomena, it comes back to us, and next time we see it differently.
Mm-hmm. I
We
think
see it.
in the answer that I would have given also is that it's in our allowing, our self
Oh, sir.
trust and faith and unconditional love that we are not just here um, creating, because I know we're self creators, but we're witnessing. And I think that's what part of the source is like growing the garden, seeing what the weeds are, and see what the helpful things are, in the garden. And
Hmm.
that's how I see it anyway.
Exactly. Another thing I want to refer you guys. These are all. You were telling me about why I rewrote something or why I'm writing again.
Right.
I'm writing things from a much much higher perspective. It's much much more clear the picture of what universe, multi-universe is, our essence is, and all this stuff. And I will refer you to another paper I wrote, published about a few months ago. That is, what is consciousness? Is it homogeneous? Is it heterogeneous? Or is it holographic? And the answer to that is it's certainly holographic. And what that means, it doesn't mean that it is fantasy, it doesn't exist. People don't understand what holograms are. Holographic basically means every constituent part of it has the same inherent characteristics as the whole. Now, the whole is God, is the prime creator. We are the constituent parts. We have the same talents. We have the same potentials. But that's what it is, potentials.
Right.
We're given free will, and it depends what we do with that. It is there for the picking, for so to speak,
Well, it's
for
for the allowing, just like it is, like I said.
100%, 100%, Mona. Allowance is something that I always personally stress upon it in my writing, is that you have to allow. The energies are out there right now. The divine energies are coming to us all the time. But if you close yourself to it,
Because of
the
fear, because of guilt, and things that people have taught us from a very early age, they told us, and we believe that what they said was factual when it's not.
and that's exactly right. Those are the plague that we have is number one is fear, and the other thing is anger, doubt, and
Fear.
yeah, those fear is the worst thing, and that's
Hmm.
that's how they prey upon us. How they preyed upon us past 13 millennia and even before that. So, uh, and if you don't allow, the adamantum particles are there. They're divine God particles. They're
Right.
in the air. They come from the sun.
Hmm.
And that's why you got chemtrails, because the chemtrails is not to do anything else but to primarily to stop these particles
We
from
don't want to go to the
changes.
chemtrails, even though you just read my mind. But it's also
Yeah.
learning our withins, that our temples, they might look like a tent or a rock or whichever, but our physical being is actually the manifestation that can give us the facts behind our journeys here and create new ones, etc., etc. But people don't have. It's like not wanting but to coexist. And I'm a creator, and that's why I keep seeing the 144. Can you go back to that?
Sure.
Because that's part of the what we started here, the consciousness crystal with the 144.
Right. Okay. So basically, what we have is that since 1987,
Okay.
which is the dawn of the harmonic convergence, it's when the Earth frequencies started really changing. It's been changing. I mean, the whole 20th century was accelerated technologies. There was a purpose to that. The fact that we got to know about lasers and we got to know about even just the movie, the television,
Right.
all this stuff, because it describes your existence.
Hmm.
Your existence is nothing but a movie. You know, you have this consciousness that is still. There are still frames. And what you do, you have a discrete consciousness. You are conscious, and then you jump to another universe, and then you jump back and jump 12 times until you come back to your original place that you were.
Right.
And the whole thing takes about 10 to the minus 43 seconds.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is what's called the torus effect.
Oh, there you
A-
go.
And so what it is that you're conscious. You think you're always conscious, but there are intervals. Yeah, and this is funny because it's there's an interval of 10 to the minus 43 seconds.
Right.
How
That's
can you
why we.
fathom that?
It is right.
You know, and that's in linear time. I mean, time doesn't
Oh my
exist.
gosh. I never thought of it as that precise because I've been through so many other variables that's rather interesting.
Yeah, and that is actually, if you go to quantum mechanics,
Right.
it's referred to as the Planck's number. You know,
Huh.
Planck came up with a lot of things. I don't know if 100% he knew what he was talking about, but he did come up with a lot of things. And there are a lot of principles in quantum mechanics that are so real.
Right. I went with Buckminster Fuller on the um,
Yeah.
popular mechanic, but that's cool.
Yeah, I'm unfortunate I don't read others. I'm attuned to God and Metatron, and I don't have time for anything else. But I have to really
Well,
get out
that's
there and
now, isn't it? Because you had to read, didn't you, to get these investigatives started? I mean, I'm not talking right now. Heck, I'm supposed to read Alfred Weber's book by Wednesday on his Omniverse, and I can see it in my mind. I'm a commercial artist by degree, an art teacher, and I have an architecture degree. So I can see the perspectives. Plus, I my graduate was mass media. So this is just rather interesting. The one, did you say 17th of a second?
no, it's 10 to the
Okay,
minus 43 seconds.
okay,
That means 0 point, put 43 zeros, 1.
okay.
I mean, it is just incredible. But again, that's in terms of Earth linear time. And
Well,
and
that's where we're at right now.
hmm in this
So
in
that's part
this
of the third dimensional reality that we're existing among.
exactly.
Okay.
Basically, do you know what linear means? What they call linear time? Do you know where that comes from?
You can explain it because I'm always listening. Go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Basically, linearity occurs when things are infinitesimally small.
Okay.
If you, from your high school, if you go back, concept of differentiation and looking at differential changes that occur, those are we call it linear because if you consider a graph, okay, which is convex or concave, or it's got some, it's not linear. And if you take those points, if you get 2 points very close to each other, extremely close to each other, that they're almost by each other, and if you connect those 2 points, you get a line. And if you march on, so you create this graph by these series of little segments, okay? Everything is becomes what you call piecewise linear, okay? So basically, this is what it is. The time is not linear. In fact, time is circular, okay? But when you come, when you reduce it to very, very, very small scale, it becomes infinitesimal. Then it becomes linear. Okay? In other words, instead of when you're marching on there, think about yourself going on a curved path. Okay? And think about yourself as becoming so small, and then the next step that you take is virtually right in front of you. So when you connect those 2 points, it has no curvature. It's a line. And that becomes piecewise linear. Anyway, that is how we call this a linear time, because time is very, very slowed down so much. It's like taking a movie and playing it slow motion tremendously.
Right,
So
right, right.
you go frame by frame by frame by frame.
Oh, that's rather interesting because I saw the circle and then the line to make the points, And for the size that you would, oh, that's interesting.
Right. And so when that becomes so slow,
Yeah.
the the per, the perception of time comes you feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And and you feel it in a linear sense.
It's
You
the
think,
material now.
well, the material now would be the overall simultaneous. It's the I don't know what you
Oh,
mean by
that'd be cool. Let's go tripping.
yeah. The now, the NOW, the capital N, capital O, capital W, is the simultaneous. That's how things exist.
Yeah.
Because you have 12 selves, okay? And you jump from one to the next to the next to the next, and then come back. And you think about yourself. You're going around this carousel, okay?
Got it.
And you jump into the
Well,
five.
there's our first break. There's our first break, darling. So we're going to mute and we'll be back in a few. It's usually about 3 to 4 minutes long. Okay?
Very good.
Ding, ding, ding. We're back on Adventures of a Feral Hippie. And we are at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. And again, we are going to ask for and thank the listeners that support us. So go to the donate page. And if you're wanting to ask any questions of today's show, go into the chat room and just see what else is on that homepage, because it's got all kinds of goodies for survival, preparation for like this snow that's coming, and other ways and means, the schedules for the show, so you can see where you might like to get the archives, and all kinds of adventures here at Revolution Radio. And my today's guest, Mohsen Sarfarazi. See, I'm just okay. Very thankful for this lesson, because the communication has just gotten chat hopping with other parallel comments to what you're saying. So you've got some interest brewing.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, the most important thing, Mona, is the very first thing for us is to understand consciousness, our consciousness. Everything in the universe is consciousness. Your existence is consciousness. Everything else is secondary. And so we have been quite in the dark, literally in the dark, in understanding our own consciousness. And to understand this, to pick up on that conversation again, consider yourself going around a clock. And there's a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, etc. There are 12 different points around the clock. And that's what you do. You are here for a very, very, very short time on this reality, in this three-dimensional earth, on this omni-earth. And then you jump to the, the first hand, which is 5 degrees or 5 o'clock. And then you're there for a little bit, and then you jump to the 10, to the 15, etc., etc., etc. And you go all around the clock. And by the time you come back to the 12th position, which you started, 12 o'clock position, it has taken you 10 to the minus 43 seconds in terms of linear time. So that's why you can't fathom that. You can't understand that. And so in this respect, this is again something that came to me a long time ago. I was walking in the park, and I was getting flooded with all this inspiration, and I kept thinking about movies. Why movies? Why we were even came to understand movies and make movies. And why are movies so important to us? What we're so intrigued with everything? Because basically all it is, it's your life. Your life is exactly the same thing.
It's the parallel universes and dimensions, because I've done photography and it's the same way with the different layers that you can put or take away, just like the computers now. We are as much our technology.
Yes. Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, yes, certainly, certainly. I'm sorry, I thought we got cut off because we had problems last time.
Well,
But
right, but we're not calling them to us today because this is Monday and it's a whole brand new now.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. I was afraid that
Oh, no fear here, babe. It's all good because we'll just come back if we have to. It's not ever to me a big deal of anything, and I appreciate your knowledge because it's almost that. Did you ever just because of all this coming in into your head have to just literally stop it because you're so opened and so connected to your Christ, your consciousness and your set of being, because you're not taking like personal. So the source is allowed to download into your computer and you
hmm
can make and manifest it outward, which is very good and vital, especially this day and age.
right. And I'm actually I'm privileged because I have a PhD. I'm a retired professor,
Cool.
so I'm a teacher. You didn't know that. No, I was a professor in continuum mechanics and materials, and
Neat.
I got personally interested in quantum mechanics. And if you want the story of my life, actually, I tell you this, it would be very interesting because all these years that I felt bad and this and that.
It's good to have the foundation known. So I think that is something you should do, is tell us.
Okay. Well, basically, Mona, my background is in structural engineering. That was, I think, that was my what I call physical or active consciousness, which is the result of your brain. Your brain is driving that through logic, and you push yourself to do certain things. And I wanted to be a structural engineer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I got my bachelor's from England, University of Sussex, which is a sister university to Cambridge, and and also actually it's very unusual to get a bachelor's in structural engineering because usually it's civil engineering, then you
Right.
specialize. But the program was very unusual. So anyway, during that period, I got very, very interested in my topics. I got very interested in solid mechanics and material science, especially mechanics, and then especially within that, which was incredible at undergraduate. So many courses. They taught us 5 courses in vibrations,
Neat.
which is unusual. And also, structural engineering shouldn't really be. I mean, yes, vibrations are part of it because you deal with earthquake structures and wind engineering and all this kind of stuff. So you need to know some things about vibrations and all that. But the program was very, very fundamental and very, very theoretical. I
Well,
didn't
to
actually.
me, can I cut in a second?
Sure.
It seems like you were using the etherical to bring it on this side.
That is quite true because I was so much attracted to these areas. We studied a lot of courses. There were a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff. And some of them, like economics and stuff like this, I barely passed. I hated them.
Right.
There were other courses, even in engineering related. I liked first of all, I liked mechanics. Okay, I liked solid mechanics, and I liked to a certain extent fluid mechanics. I liked a little bit soils because again, it's a kind of a different type of it's a mechanics of basically
Earth.
soil is
It's
con
the
so
elements.
yeah,
It's part of the basic elements because you really should know both. Or,
exactly.
yeah. Okay.
And then to a certain extent, material science. We studied some material science, but not that much in the undergraduate. So anyway, I went to University of George Washington University in Washington D.C. and I finished my master's in structural engineering, and I got into a lot of numerical methods, finite element, you know, energy methods, all these kind of things,
Cool.
which makes you understand everything in a piecewise manner.
Right.
In other words, you can march, and the whole computation, the whole computer is discrete. It's not a continuous system. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yes, I
You
do.
ha- you have digits, you have numbers, and
It's all input also.
everything is a digit, and then you can have iteration, and you can correct things in a loop, and all this stuff, you know. But anyway, it's a discrete system. Everybody knows computers are 0 1, you know, binary system, and it's digital, and it is a discrete system. It's you
Hmm.
don't solve a differential equation and have f as a function of x for every point, or let's say x as a function of t, time, space versus time, that for every time you know where you are. That would be a closed form solution. That would be a non-discrete solution. A discrete solution would be just as I mentioned. You step here, and then you go a little closer, and then you go a little closer. You become piecewise linear, but then you reproduce the graph. It doesn't matter how complex and curvy it is, because you go step little by little by little in series of linear segments, you know? Anyway, so I got my master's in there, and I started my. After 1 year, I was actually appointed as an assistant professor. I started teaching, and I started my PhD. So in about a year and a half later, I was done. I could have written a thesis in finite element analysis. In fact, I wrote a couple of computer programs. You know, one was finite element analysis for dynamics. I called it FEED. The other one was computer analysis of rigid frames. I called it CARF. And I did actually this as a homework, which it was kind of a master level thesis. And I did it, you know, I was very interested in all that, you know, very cerebral at that time I was. But
You like
anyway,
to elaborate on things. That's why you're recalibrating everything that what was into something new now.
exactly. Well, you know now the pixels are forming in there, and you see the whole picture. You know
So
what I'm
did the
saying?
government ever come up behind you and offer you some jobs?
Oh, certainly.
Oh,
Yes,
so oh,
absolutely.
well, that's what
I
I'm
got
thinking.
job.
Man, you know too much, bro. I mean, oh my
No,
gosh,
I didn't want to work with the government though, Mona. I'm
I
like
don't
you. I'm kind
blame
of a
you.
hippie. You know, I'm a hippie. I don't. I've always been like kind of that kind of a hippie. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, did you like my forward?
Oh, I love what you represent. You know,
Wasn't that? Oh,
that's why
okay.
I'm
Well,
talking to you.
I don't know.
You
I only
know,
see me as now. But yeah, I am
listen,
hippie. But
listen, listen,
I'm
listen.
right in your alley because you're really stimulating my synapses to know more. And this is what it is. It's the time of revelations. And we don't
Exactly.
have to judge these things. We just have to allow it. And such cool things can happen once we all get into a certain versa harmonic to change this stuff. And the parasites need to go.
They'll be gone. They're already gone. Don't worry about it.
Well, I
They're
know.
already gone in the future. We already know that.
Well, I'm still hearing this now, but go ahead.
But yeah, but you see, the thing is that when you're in your dream state, you jump into all these different realities that are correct.
Hmm.
Don't think that you're dreaming or your brain is making up. Your brain is dead when you're asleep.
But we need
This
to
is
know that now is also correct. It's how we respond in any of the ways and factors is what it gets created, right?
basically the you are uh, you have the essence of God.
Right.
Okay, you have the creativity, and you are a creator.
Mm-hmm.
You have created all this reality. Everything you see around, it's because of you and you and you. The yous that you don't see, they're above you. You know what I'm saying? Or they're within you, actually. I shouldn't say above. You should say inner space.
That's right. Right.
Outer space doesn't mean anything. It's
That's where
nonsense.
I get so ticked off about how religion has taken the best phonic of words to put and allow our oversouls within ourselves because it's in earth as in heaven, not on earth as in heaven. And we've lived such a dialogue of misconceptions, and that's yes, welcome back. We are at freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio on Adventures of a Feral Hippie. This Monday, 2/16/2015. Jeez, did anybody think we'd get this far? And life is just full of magic and mischief, and as long as there's harm to none, I think everybody needs to get some. Huh, Mohsen?
Yep. So we're back now.
Yeah, we're actually here.
Wonderful.
Well, I think sometimes the etheric side is going to try to pull all its, because it's balanced and equal as us here playing in this field. And so that sometimes just the energies think they can get over on us, and it ain't going to happen on my end.
We're
Because we're
not going to
talking
let
some
go.
pretty interesting stuff. Even if we get some people's little sparks going, that's a benefit in our light favor. But the shadow favor doesn't want that.
That is true. That's
And
true.
so, I just let things slide.
Well, just remember, in this particular paradigm of life, we're in duality.
Right.
And so there is the light and the dark. It is the University of Earth. It is the University of Duality. We're here to learn. And without the dark, the appreciation of light may just go away.
Right. I never thought of it like that. Very good. Cool.
So we have to, I think it's part of, it's a school of hard knocks. I remember reading some of the channels by Arcturians and Palladians and whatnot, and they used to come a lot of them from. In fact, that period that I was telling you that I was very attuned to Metatron. I mean and before that, about a year, 2 years before that, the channels were just getting flooded. I mean, there were so many messages coming to Earth.
Mm-hmm. And
Galactic
some
Spirit.
people would actually have fear for what society has taught it to be, stating that these voices were demons and things like that. If we don't understand that there's a wider universe of many same like entities of souls, then you're on not a level playing field. You're a slave to the illusion. And I know we're here to try to help unprogram being controlled by the illusion instead of making a reality. Because we're here to make a better reality.
That is correct. And always you have to remember that everything that happens, it was meant to happen.
Right. There's a good cause and a reason, and we've actually created it through our thoughts, through our actions, through our intent.
Exactly. And, you started saying that before regarding creation. And that is what God gave us the power of thought to, well, first of all, we have the spirit, we have the mind, we have the
Oh, that's
soul.
what you were saying before everything went is the three consciousnesses. Can you go back to that?
Sure. That actually relates to this very well. Um, yeah, basically the first thing is the physical consciousness, and that's what you remember. There are those still frames of every 10 to the minus 43 seconds that we were talking about, and that's when they all come together. It linearize, and you think there's a continuity, and you think of the past, the future, and the now, which is it's all illusion. I mean, it's just in your perception. But
Concept,
anyway,
right.
so basic. But the physical consciousness is driven by your brain, and it is that part of your hard drive, your CPU, which started functioning when you reincarnated, and when you were cut off of your heritage, your, you know what I'm saying, your higher self, or higher selves, I should even say. And so that is what you remember. We think that's consciousness. We think that when we fall asleep or we pass out or something, that is it. That's consciousness. That's only this smallest form of consciousness, I should say. It's the lowest form of consciousness. Then you have a soul. Your soul is your entity that keeps track of you. That it's your computer basically. It has the hard drive, it has the memory, it has all that, and that lives in subconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And your soul is in this stage that we are, is composed of 12 different selves. Those are the selves that, remember, you were jumping into parallel, sequentially jumping, right?
Okay.
And that's how we're multidimensional in that fashion. So your soul lives in the subconsciousness. Now, when your physical consciousness is dominant while you're on Earth, because your vessel, it's kind of like if you have a computer, you have a radio, you have whatever that's playing so loudly, you can't hear anything behind that. So you have to turn off this physical consciousness and you get to subconscious. Now, one way that you do, I mean, you are always in subconscious. You don't know it though. There are
Right.
those 10 to the minus 43 seconds. They're not discernible. But when you go to dream state, when you sleep at night, when you daydream during the day,
Meditate.
when you meditate, exactly, your physical consciousness turns off. Thank God for that. And your brain stops functioning, and you start streaming through your heart. By the way, your heart is an extreme, and this is scientific. This is not any voodoo or anything that it's not make believe or anything like that. The heart is an extremely complicated instrument. It is much more complicated than your brain. The nervous system of your heart is extremely sophisticated, way beyond our understanding. If you want to understand that, you see that your heart can detect the torus field, all the energy, electromagnetic energies around you, and you don't even need electrodes to record that on a paper in a laboratory setting. In your brain, you have to have sophisticated electrodes and all this stuff to monitor the functions of your brain.
Uh-huh.
But the function of your heart is very extremely high powered, and it is out there. It is out there, and the waves are out there. So anyway, that is your subconsciousness is driven by your heart, and actually by thymus is one of your endocrine glands, which is one
All
of the
right.
divine glands, and that's how you relate, and then you get access. Think about this: that there's a vast library in there. There's the Akashic records, we call it, the Akashic library, and you become privy to going there and pulling a disc out there and playing that. So now I know about this. Now I know about that. If you could do this, you could sit in a plane and you can pilot the plane, because you can get information how to pilot the plane. And
Right.
people have done that. People have done that when it's come to
Emergencies.
emergencies, yes. And people have survived conditions that are beyond expectations.
Isn't that cool?
And we call this magic. Well, the whole existence is magic. The whole life is magic. The whole God's gift to us is magic. It's
I
just
do.
that sometimes we come to appreciate it. A lot of times we don't. We're just so ignorant. And they've kept us ignorant, and they want to keep us ignorant, you know? So anyway, that's your subconsciousness, and then there's beyond that, there's another level of consciousness, which is way beyond that, way superior to that, and that is the superconsciousness. That gets to you at the level of your spirit. Now, the spirit is the essence of God, is what you inherited from God. That's the driving force. Okay. The soul was created as a matter of maintenance because you had a personality, right? You had all these experiences. You separated from the prime creator, and you had to keep track of all that.
Right.
So then you have soul. Now, soul functions at the level of subconscious. Spirit goes all the way, attaches to God. And remember what I told you about the mathematical model. You are a constitution connected to God through a spring.
Right.
And that spring is your karmic elastic energy. You pull away from God, you deflect from it. Like a spring, when you pull it, it stores elastic energy. And then you have to pop back. You have to have against that. You know what I'm saying? It's a force against your inertial force. And inertial force is the force of your existence, your animation. So you have to work hard to go back again. You know what I'm
So
saying?
what's the cosmology of how that can be achieved?
Clearing, clearing and cleansing. The most important thing, you have to rid yourself of karma.
But to me, in my world that I've studied to believe to know, that karma is just action reaction. It's all cause and effect.
It is, but it
So
is.
would it be like just correlating to know that forgiveness and not being a victim and not taking experiences in life so personally because you really haven't created it, but you have created it to experience it? Because if we're here to feel it, then we've gotten through anything that's been exposed to us.
Exactly, but that is a simpler definition of karma. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think Edgar Casey started talking about these things. That was one of the older literature that we have on this. That he did a very good job. You know, because he used to connect to his higher self. You know,
Right.
and he used to get all these downloads, and he didn't even know what he was saying. It's a different situation that I go through because I'm very conscious when
Right.
I go through.
Well, I think
But
of Notre Dame is too.
Notre Dame, yes,
But
Notre
we've
Dame
changed
was
so
that.
many of the timelines, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, getting back to karma, Mona, there is karma is an extremely big issue for us. I mean, for us as spirits, as souls, not as just bodies, you know, not as personalities. Uh, Karma is all there is. God let you free, let you go out there and deflect and vibrate. And that's what that vibration is. Like that spring, you pull that spring a little bit, let it go, and it starts oscillating, it's vacillating. And that's exactly your life. That's life. That's life. And the inertia force that is while you're vibrating, the mx double dot, you know, by Newton's third law, that is basically it's you know it's acted against upon it by this karmic force. Now, if you get rid of karma, now karma is not just what you see and hear, friends. Yeah, right. That's the first level of it. But there is such thing as genetic karma.
Mm-hmm.
So you're born with it. You know, it's in your DNA, and you got to clean all that. You got to cleanse yourself out of that.
Well, I
So
see it as doing us, like, because I always am in people, and I found this true for myself, that if it ever gotten to the point where I was confused, not feeling centered, I would hum because to me that's the center coddling, the getting back to my source with my sound is my home. And it's just like with the meditations and stuff like that. It is rather amazing
Yeah,
that
you
we,
start resonating to that frequency, a
right.
higher frequency. Sure.
And supposedly it only takes 17 seconds to be able to have that thought change. But sometimes our internal dialogue is so strong, we need a bunch of 17 seconds. And even a smile, even if you're not happy or whichever, put a smile on your face. It actually changes the chemicals and hormones in our body to help us get through these things.
Of course, of course, of course. And those that, as you said, those are completely correct. Being benevolent, being at peace
Mm-hmm.
with people around you. That's the first lesson, and but that is the first lesson, but it's also the most important lesson because if you do that, then you will resonate to those frequencies that will bring you everything: prosperity, let you create. You get in a higher dimension. You know what I'm saying, and that's where you
Mm-hmm.
should be. That's where you come from. The problem is that you have reincarnated in this body that vibrates at a very low frequency. And because that's the condition it is. And we can go back to my paper now, talk about the grid and the crystalline consciousness and all this kind of stuff. Because what you have a reality. The way that reality is set is through grid. Okay? It is through your grid. And what it is that you have a thought system that you can go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And beta is where we have well, we've changed we're changing now, but beta is the lowest frequency. Basically, it was about seven hertz, 7.81 hertz according to Schumann's resonance, and that is the frequency that you're vibrating. Now, as long as the overall frequency of the planet is 7.83, when you send all that back to the grid send it to you. It's kind of like a software. It
Mm-hmm.
is a software. It's
Yeah,
100%
exactly.
a software. Computers, television, movies. I wrote two papers 2 years ago about this, and I was very sure. I told you I was walking in a park. It came to me, and I was quite sure this is so important. What I'm thinking in here, when I get that feeling, I know it's important because every time I felt that way, even months later, you see it clearer and clearer and clearer that
Right.
it was important. But at that time, you know, anyway, so what happens is that all this stuff with the movies, with the television, because it describes your existence.
Well, it
The,
could be also putting in the people's minds to be slow enough to think that's what it is when it's not yet here. Like some of those, what is it, the Walking Dead TV series and all these other things. Why are they putting that into people's heads? It's not
yeah.
entertainment, it's
Oh, yeah.
pre-programming, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I wasn't talking when I was talking about movies and TVs and stuff. I wasn't talking about what the Hollywood does. Of course, that's used as a pawn.
Right.
But I was talking about the principle of it, how it
Okay.
functions. Movies are a series. That's just the word tells you. Movies is the series of still frames
Right.
that when you play them fast, you go through that linearity, and then it starts giving you animation. It gives you
Right.
dynamicism, and that's what your life is about. You're a still frame here, and then 10 to the minus 43 seconds you come back again, etc., etc., etc. But
Cool.
when you don't have a recollection between of that torus effect, or what I had referred to 2 years ago as a dark period, which is the period between that 10 to the minus 43 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see it. And so it's like when the movie's playing, when that thing is real, carousel is going around in the old fashioned, not the digital way. It's easier to understand it in the older way. And it is going around. You see this frame, and then the next frame is on top of it, and you don't have time between the two to think what's going on.
Exactly.
So that's exactly how your
But I
consciousness is.
also see it as overlays because I've done a lot of color separations in
Oh
that
yeah.
before, they came out with the electronic creating things. I did it all by hand in commercial art. So yeah, and it's not just one parallel linear thing. It's like you said, the 12 hours, and each one has its own perspective and momentum.
And personality. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
What it is, think about every one of those as a microfiche. And I think that's what you're trying to say too.
Well,
That
yeah,
you put these microfiche on top of each other, and what you're doing, you're adding pixels to the overall picture. And those pixels are, of course, they're your personality. They're, so in you may come to this world, and you may be black, okay, and then you may exist in another parallel as white, okay, and here you learn about suppression, and you have to deal with all these deep emotions and all this stuff, and but you resort to love. You think of God. This is why you see a lot of these slaves and people. They were so religious, and they were, because it gave them comfort, and it gave them a sense of validity to exist. Then you had all these white colored, what is it, last century, 2 centuries ago, and they were the slave drivers, and they learn about power. So basically, you learn about love here, about power there, and eventually, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to integrate. You have to integrate and come to the middle.
right.
And once you come to the middle, then you are perfecting. Then
Trinity.
you get impeccability, as Metatron
Oh, there
calls
you
it.
go. But that's only half of it because isn't Metatron the Merkabah and just a different source?
Exactly. Well, the Lord Metatron is actually a lot more than what people think he is. There are very few people on the planet who really understand Lord Metatron.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Metatron, if you want to understand him, he is the chief scientist of God, and he is an an entity that
Oh,
has.
so he did the Adam and Eve thing, huh?
Well, he gives you the consciousness.
Okay, so he's the programmer.
He's the consciousness. He's the one who takes the black holes, okay, and change the energy, the useless, futile energy of the black holes, and changes it into white holes, white infinitesimal holes, which
Neat.
they come out. The black holes suck in matter, and they recreate antimatter. And antimatter is the finer version of matter, which exists in higher frequency.
Right.
Okay. So so he's the one that controls this carousel that we were talking about. This going
Well,
around the clock.
but hasn't it already just been set in motion?
Oh, of course. No, he's the one. I will refer to this in my writings as the engine of life, Metatronic engine of life.
The
It is
designer.
yes, yes. That's
The
why I'm saying he's the
blueprint
chief
kind of thing,
scientist.
right?
Yeah, he's the chief scientist. He's the one who, and the way it's done is that you take the consciousness of God, which can interact in antimatter, and then you change that back into physical matter in form of light, which is above physical matter. It has
Mm-hmm.
all the frequencies. It has a spectrum of things, and then that is imparted upon you. It's actually imparted upon your soul. It's actually imparted upon your oversoul. Your oversoul disseminates this to your soul,
Mm-hmm.
and your soul disseminates it to yourselves. which are the 12 of them. Okay?
Got it.
So then you animate. It ticks you, you know? You become live. Everything is light. You know, everything is light. People don't realize
Well,
it.
you mean that, well, and also it's just a different vibration of densities because there are still the shadows. We have shadows here now, even though there's light, but it gives contrast and there's nothing to fear of the dark.
That's right. And that's part of the duality. That's why you came to duality to
Choose.
live that, to live that, to learn it, to
Mhm.
master it, to be on top of it. And once you do that, and you can integrate the both extreme, you know, from the dark to light, from the good to evil, from da 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 da. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
but also it's as simplistic as on and off. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
because everything has an equal and opposite. It's which one that we love or fear, that we gain to us, from us, and because of us.
That's correct. But what we do is just we get exposed to the whole spectrum of things,
Yeah,
going
right.
from the extreme good to evil.
But which ones are you feeding? That's the whole thing here. That's the simple consciousness that we have such a gravity here at, not knowing about the subconscious and the super subconscious. But we are gone to break, so we shall return. Woohoo! We are back at Adventures of a Feral Hippie at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're starting to get the snow now, so everybody buckle down the hatches. Except maybe you, Mohsen, because you're in Florida, right?
Yeah, we don't see snow ever.
Well, I've lived in Florida over 50 years and I've seen a few things there that were always amazing to me. How long have you lived in Florida?
Since let's see, 2000, no, 1990, I believe. Let me think. 97,
Uh-huh.
97.
Uh-huh.
So it's what, 14, 15 years now?
Yeah, cuz in what was it?
Oh,
1980
17 years actually.
1985, three of my greenhouses froze and there was snow. So I know that it is plausible that it could, depending, because it was St. Pete, Florida. So, and that always should stay warmer than the rest of the state because of the water. But
Yeah, it's very very unusual. I mean, and if it does, it's just for a very short time and it disappears. You know,
right,
it's
so
not like
this,
you'll have snow on the ground for a long time or whatever. It never happens.
well, I'm glad that we still have some natural cycles that are still going on. So, where did we leave off? Did
Oh,
we
let me
get
think.
the
What was
one?
the last thing? I've been trying to retrieve one of my papers that I inadvertently uh, deleted it.
Uh oh.
I put it on the wrong blog. I put it on the consciousness blog, and I wanted to move it on the quantum mechanics blog.
Right.
And so, luckily, it was on one of the screens, so I cut and pasted it. And yeah, they take time. You know, they take even
Sometimes you
even it's just that there's some logistics of it. To get everything correctly, putting the pictures in there and make sure everything works. And
Well, and don't you think
you know,
some of the other side has come alive to this side to where even though sometimes we think we're doing it the way it's supposed to be done, the universal law kind of says, nope, it's going to be done this way.
oh, I'm sure that everything that happens, I believe, is for a reason.
Right,
You know,
right.
even if it's for our own learning. You can't get upset and say, "Oh, why didn't happen? Why wasn't you know?" people want things to be easy for them. You know what I'm saying? They talk about luck, all that kind of stuff. But, but trust me, some of the stuff that actually appears to be harsh at one time, you will understand later that you learned something from it, and there was a reason for it,
And a blessing because it helps
and a
stimulate,
blessing.
make
Yes.
change. Yeah. And life's always in change. So,
Hello.
hey, there it. Okay, it worked.
Are we on air, Mona?
The air is moving. Yes, we're live.
No. Okay, good. I was thinking, just since we have just a very little time, about 15 minutes, are there anything on the chat room? Any questions? Anything we can
Um,
address?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Nope. And I haven't seen any newbies come in to see about joining us, but that's just because other things are happening. A lot of people are out getting provisions because of this cold coming, and oh, it's just been interesting. I've never really experienced any kind of this chill, but it's fine. I'm having a good time.
Okay, you mean in terms of the weather?
Well, and on the show, yeah, I really enjoy our conversation.
Well, thank you, thank
So,
you.
what is with the 144 that you've brought up?
Well, the 144 refers to
The grid. It's the crystalline grid. Basically, first of all, some people think that 144 has just been created on 12 12 12. It is not true. It's always been there. These things, that God created, or children of God created, they have been in place, but they are functioning at different frequencies, and it's a matter of being able to discern it, that it's
Hmm.
there or not. Now, we've had recently three types of grids. The first one was a gravity grid, which is it's a dodecahedron. I've explained these in paper, and that basically goes up to third dimension.
Hmm.
Okay, and then there was the isohedron, which is it's a bigger, it's a grid that encompasses gravity grid. It's bigger, and that is that's an electromagnetic grid. So that's basically pushes us up to the fourth dimension,
Hmm.
which we've had that recently before the 12 12 12. And then on 12 12 12, Earth ascended to the higher dimension and to the crystalline realm of crystalline consciousness, which is now we have this pentadodecahedron, which is the 144 faceted grid. Okay,
Hmm.
and if you want to understand these grids, you can go back to the old Aristotle and all that stuff, and people have talked about it in the old times, and it's basically all it is. It's just you consider the planet Earth, it's circular, and then you have these energetic points on the planet
Right.
that if you connect those, you're going to form a polyhedron, which is so many faceted, has
Exactly.
triangles and all that. So the 144 is actually, strictly speaking, again, some people don't understand this. It pushes us up to ninth dimension. Uh, okay, and the way it works is that these grids, okay, they have they have degrees of freedoms that they can either contract or you
Expand.
you expand. So if you consider a three-dimensional Cartesian type coordinate system, so they would contract, in vertical, laterally, all that stuff, the principal directions, and so as the grid becomes more complicated, it can expand and contract more in a more complicated fashion. Now the 144 grid expands and contracts, and it's actually, if you want to understand from the mathematical points, it's really a tensor of order 2, which is 3 to the power 2, which is nine different dimensions it can go to. The new one, which is going to be functional by the year 2024, it is the polyhedron 120, which really has 182 facets. So it's more complicated. It has more points, and so that's the one that can rotate about itself. It can spin about itself. So you have a degree. You know what a degree of freedom is, right?
Well, you can explain it.
Okay, so if you actually go back and take a look at that paper, if you want, that's called Soul Body Vibration, it will explain everything from vibration mechanics, everything you need to know about understanding vibration, frequency, resonance, harmonics, convergences, and everything that's, I don't get too much into textbook stuff. Everything that you need to know, spirituality and higher consciousness, in higher consciousness terms. So and if
And
you
we
go in there,
find this where?
it's actually, if you go on my blog, which is quantum micromechanics,
Cool.
and that's, I have, I think, 3 or 4 blogs. I'm going to be putting up human energetics, because if you remember, you were talking about auras and chakras, and I already wrote one in bioplasmic, which is the one that I lost, which I luckily had it on the screen. I cut and pasted it, so I have it again. So that's probably going to go in there, because it's all about energetics right now.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the grid system. So you have 120 polyhedra, which is very complicated, and it has 182 facets, and that will take you to crystalline consciousness. Now that is, oh, by the way, degree of freedom. I'm so sorry. Degree of freedom. What it is that it is the extent, the propensity of a point to move. So if you can go forward, backward, that's 1 degree of freedom. If you can go upward, downward, that's 2 degrees of freedom now. And if you go right to left, that's 3. So basically, a line has 1 degree of freedom. A plane has 2 degrees of freedom, and a cube or a volume has 3 degrees of freedom. Correct? Then you can describe degree of freedom about any kind of vectors, any kind of lines out there. So you can have n-dimensional, degree of freedom. So basically, the way that always quantum mechanics or the physics basically has talked about is that we have 12 dimensions. You know what I'm saying? And there's a 13th dimension, but they count that as the interface between the dimension. It's like the boundary. Are you there still, Mona?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you again. But so anyway, so going back to this grid, these grids can go, they can move about 3 principal axes back and forth. They can rotate about those axes back and forth. And then the 3 others is that the whole body can rotate about itself.
What? You turned us sideways and we lost what you said.
Okay. The whole body can spin about itself, right?
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I adjusted the microphone.
Yeah, we're good.
So it spins in one direction and spins the other direction, and then the third direction. So degree of freedom has to do with multidimensionality. It's to be, think about vibrations. is basically you vibrate in inner space. And recently it just came to me that inner space is a system of concentric spheres.
Mm-hmm.
God is at the center of that sphere, which is a point. And from there, it just, you have sphere about that, and you can actually have proven that there are 356 dimensions altogether possible.